Second South Asia Conference on Multidisciplinary Research in the year 2019, held at Colombo, Sri Lanka. Now, before we start, I'll request all our paper presenters to follow across the serial number as I call out their names. Serial number 1 is Abhijit Das. Please hear yourself. Serial number 2 is Aditi Khuntia. Serial number 3 is Ankita Sharma. Serial number 4 is Arunab Das. Serial number 5 is Bapi Gochayat. Serial number 6 is Bishnupriya Pani, Deepak K. Patnaik, and Nachiketa Sharma. Now, serial number 7 is Dr. Kishore Kumar Prushti. Serial number 8 is Dr. Chittaranjan Mishra. Serial number 9 is Dr. Krishnendu Rai. Serial number 10 is H. Sudhir Kumar Singh and Loitambag B. Singh. Followed by serial number 11 is Dr. Krishna Chandra Das. Serial number 12 is Dr. Mahendra Kumar Swain. Serial number 13 is Dr. M.D. Yamin. Serial number 14 is Sashmita Rani Sashini. Serial number 15 is Dr. Aparna Mukherjee. Followed by Dr. Sudananda Nayak, who is at serial number 16, and Mr. Ashwin Kumar and Arjun Rao Jogdan at serial number 17. Then after serial number 18 is Swarnalata Mahari, and serial number 9 is Prativarini Barik. Serial number 20 is Miss Sarathi Beshra. Serial number 21 is Alkananda Gahir. Serial number 22 is Dr. Snigdha Rani Behera. And the last is serial number 23, Harendra Narayan Behera. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have our chairperson of this parallel paper reading session, who is Professor Sanjay Acharya. And let me introduce our chairperson, Sir. Sir has done his master's, MPhil and PhD from our esteemed Utkal University. Not only this, he has worked with various institutions. I'm calling out the names. He has worked as at Regional College of Education in NCRT Bhubaneswar, as a lecturer at Department of History, Utkal University. Sir has also worked as a senior lecturer at Department of Ancient Indian History and Cultural and Archaeology, Department of Utkal University. Sir has also had various awards and nominations in his name. He has done immense research experience. And not only this, he has had various talks and presentations on various topics like preservation of cultural heritage. He has also worked on topics like preservation of cultural property and evolution of Odishan temple architecture. Now, these are the very few names that I am listing out. He has done various other works. Now, last but not least, he has had a long list of publications under his name, and Sir continues to guide our young mind every single day. And I welcome you, Sir, to this gathering. May I have a please round of applause for our chairperson and co-chairperson. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the paper reading session, I'll request our chairperson, Sir, to please address our audience. Sir, please.
Right, no, I'll not give any address. Good afternoon, everybody. Namaskar. It's nice that we are having a seminar on Kalinga and its linkage with Southeast Asian countries. Well, I'm not here to deliver any address because I think we are running short of time. As it is, we have 23 papers, and if I take even 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that will be deducted from the overall time. So, welcome all of you to this seminar and this session where we are going to have paper presentation. We have 23 papers, and I think we have maximum 10 minutes. I'd request all the participants to kindly not read the papers. Please do not read. It would be good that if you can briefly talk about what the paper is about, the concept of the paper, and that would be rather better, so that if you can finish in around 7 minutes, we can have 3 minutes for if any questions come up. So I think all of you will agree with that, and we'll stick with the 10 minutes slot for each scholar. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all the distinguished delegates and paper presenters and my revered elder brother, Professor Sanjay Acharya. Actually, the first participant is Abhijit Das. His paper is on contribution of seaports in the growth and development of Orissa in the 19th century. Already you have been given the time slot, 7 minutes and extra 3 minutes, total 10 minutes.
Joy Jagannath to everyone. I am Abhijit Das, research scholar PhD, University of North Bengal, Department of History. My topic is contribution of seaport in the growth and development of Orissa in the 19th century. First time I will tell you the introduction. The port of Orissa contributed to its economic and commercial growth since ancient time. Various ports of Orissa attracted foreign trade and foreign investment of the growth and development of the economic contribution of the countries. The features and the nature of the ports have had positive impact on the lifestyle of the people and their purchasing behavior. The ports were utilized to attract foreign trade and investment for the better growth and development of economy of Orissa. The characteristic and features of the sea coast of Orissa coast were favorable for foreign trading, such as the British merchant, Portuguese, English, and Dutch, as well as the Asian merchant utilizing the sea coast for the growth and development of their business, which was beneficial for the economic growth of Orissa. The important coast which was included the Pipli Port, Balashore Port, Horior Port, Dharma Port, Subarna Rekha Port, and many others. Each and every seaport had a considerable contribution to the economic growth of Orissa. The advent of the British and their victory over Orissa has a great impact on the coastal area of Orissa. The impact of the British and their influence on the coastal activities of Orissa will be discussed, which further will show the economic growth of Orissa. The importance of the seaports. The Orissa ports, which had a significant role in the coastal economic activities in the 19th century. Some ports are Pipli Port, Balashore Port, Horior Port, Dharma Port, and Subarnarekha Port, etc. The first time the Portuguese sailor came to this port, which became an important settlement for the Portuguese. Later, Dutch and English sailor came to this port, and both had a big competition of commercial activities at Pipli Port. After the decline, the Portuguese Dutch company started the export from Pipli Port various places, and salt was the main item. Balashore Port, this port was discovered by the English 1633. English developed a factory at Balashore Port 1640. This port was famous for muslin, silk, and salt pepper. Ships from Madras coast, from the cyclone Lakshadweep and Maldives Island annually restored to Balashore Port in the large number of the rice trade. Ships of a large size anchor at and were loaded from the cargo boat. This port flourished under the patronage of the English East India Company. Dharma Port, English merchant declared it is an important port in 1858. During the British conquest of Orissa, 1803, this port helped a lot to conquer Orissa. Here, rice and salt were the most famous, which were exported to Bengal. The survey reports 1870 the place first among the navigable river of Orissa. This port continued to serve as an important part of Orissa up to 1849. Subarnarekha and Shartha, according to this Act 2 of 1858, it was declared a port of Orissa in the year 1858 during the 19th century. Shartha was a main important port of Orissa, and another important port is Chanoa. This port played an important role in the growth and seaborne trade in the Balasore district as well as the northern Orissa. Chandabuli is the one of the most port in Orissa for developing the economic condition of Orissa, and during this famine 1866, Chandabuli port took a great important role. And Falls Point, one of the most important port of Orissa. This is the best harbor on the entire coast of India between Hooghly and Bombay. This port activity was mainly in the rainy season. Between 1860 and 1862, ANC was established there only to export rice from the Kotak. However, Falls Point served as an important port of Orissa's second half of the 19th century. Here, quantity of export and import was very famous for rice. From here, good quantity of rice exported to different foreign countries. And economic growth, overseas state relation and commercial activities. A remarkable past of Orissa was found in many epics including Mahabharata. Also, their tremendous bravery, patriotism and generosity, etc. All these things were told in Buddhist and Jain literature. Being situated in the coastal area of the Bay of Bengal, Orissa had a significant contribution to the Indian maritime history. The sailor of Orissa did land at various places including Tokkola and Kokkanagara in Malay Peninsula, Sri Vijay in Sumatra, Sri Khetra in Burma, Purva Kalinga in Java, Tonkin in Cambodia. Through this port, communication between Orissa and Southeast Asia people became good and started export and import material exchange, which was one of the big reasons for developing the economic condition of Orissa. For a good economic condition of any society or state, one of the important ways is trade. It was also has been seen that Kolkata and Madras was also were the importer of regular goods from Orissa in 1870. The imported goods were mainly foreign clothes, betel nut, spices, and copper. The exported goods from Orissa were timber, hide, horn, rice, and mustard. Rice was an important item that attracted southern India. British Raj had an endeavor to introduce commercial agriculture in Orissa. Rice and sugarcane were the main principal food crops. We can see that Balasore district agriculture products were increased due to private initiatives. Gram, pulses, and oilseeds were among the principal rabi crops of Orissa in the 19th century. It occupied around 7.0% of the total crop area in the Cuttack district in the year 1900. The maritime trade of Orissa, 19th century, conferred some profits on the people of Orissa. The increasing import of the consumer goods was indicating of improvement in the standards of living of the people. The people of Orissa in general got salt and cloth of the fine quantity of cheaper rate, and did rising export and trade in rice brought about the improvement in the material condition in the big farmers. Besides the export such minor items like hide, oilseeds, coconut, fish, dish, and etc. Conclusion. From ancient time, we could see that maritime activity of Orissa and economic condition were good because the number of natural factors such as location, topography, climate, resources, agriculture, and mineral resources. Nature has supported Orissa with so many rivers, otherwise it could not have been possible to communicate with Orissa due to rocky condition. Above discussions of sports, Pipli, Balasore, Subarnarekha, Chandabuli, Churamani, and Falls Point, etc. This sport helped a lot to grow the economic condition of Orissa, and one of the major point is the great link with foreign countries such as Java, Sumatra, Malay, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Indonesia. Although the British had a monopoly over Orissa, their contribution was a tremendous factor in developing Orissa's economic condition. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Sir, just 1 minute, sir. Good, speak microphone diyundu.
My suggestion to all my young friends, presented now ports of northern Odisha. He told so many things. Nowadays we are having mobile everyone. If you would have taken a map of northern Odisha, port, Southeast Asian countries, by showing that one in the slide, in one slide, he could have convinced to everyone and everyone would have known where is Baleshwar, where is people, whether people is north or Baleshwar is north. Okay? This is my small suggestion to all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Just 1 second before you start. My sincere request to all the participants who are going to present papers, it would be, as sir said, if you have any PPT, then that would be good. But I would again request that to spell out the gist, to spell out the content of your paper would be much better than just reading it out. Please take a note. If you can, please do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin with our serial number 2, I'm going to first call out all the names of the paper readers, and please raise your hands for who are present or not. I'll just take the names. So serial number 2, Aditi Khuntia, yeah, present. 3, Ankita Sharma. 4, Arunav Dash. 5, Bapi Gochayar. 6, Vishnupriya Pani. 7th, Dr. Kishore Kumar Prushti. 8th, Dr. Chittaranjan Mishra. 9th, Dr. Krishnendu Rai. 10th, H. Sudhir Kumar Singh. 11th is Dr. Krishna Chandra Das. 12th is Dr. Mahendra Kumar Swain. 13th is Dr. M.D. Yamin. 14th is Sashmita Rani Shashini. 15th is Dr. Aparna Mukherjee. 16th is Dr. Sadananda Nayak. 17th is Dr. Ashwin Kumar. 18th is Dr. Swarnalata Mahari. 19th is Pratibha Rani Barik. 20th is Miss Sarathi Besra. 21, Alkananda Gahir. 22 is Dr. Snigdha Rani Behra. And last, 23 is Harendra Narayan Behra. Okay. So may I request our serial number 2, Aditi Khuntia, to please come over the dais.
Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to speak upon the topic, which is cultural impact of Kalinga on Southeast Asia, a debate about Indianization or Kalinganization. So as we all know that the term Indianization is generally used for the Indian cultural influence upon the regions of Southeast Asia. Now, the Greater India Society, which was established in 1926, was the role of the Greater India Society was to enlighten the Indian and the Southeast Asian cultural syncretism. The nationalist historians who had faced the humiliations that were bestowed upon by the colonialists, they wanted to give it back, and they basically sought to take this as an advantage, and they glorified the heritage of the Indian past. Now, the main objective of the nationalist historians through this Greater Indian Society was to induct a sense of pride and nationalist spirit among the Indians. The imperialist historians and the rulers alike had imposed their racial superiority and had called the Indians and the Indian civilization a stagnant civilization who did not have a sense of rule or who did not have any idea to note down history. Now, and also remarked certain things like the Indians were forever bound within the shackles of superstitions. These views were effectively challenged by the nationalist historians, and with the onset of the nationalist school of historiography, the humiliation that the colonialist historians had bestowed upon Indians by pronouncing the latter as barbarians was actively challenged. Now, glorifying India's past was in the manifesto of the nationalist historians, and one of the outcomes of this process of nationalist historiography was that they visualized the cultural background of Southeast Asia as a gift from India. Now, the nationalist historians had described these areas, the areas of the Southeast Asia, as Indian colonies, but what we need to keep in mind that this Indian colonization process was never through violent means, or it was never a political means. It was always very peaceful. So presently, why this topic is pertinent is because in the present age of globalization, when the world has become a global village, the cultural, socio-economic ties among different countries have been explored. Now, in this present aspect, as we have already talked about India's Look East policy, which has later become the Act East policy, this topic is very much important. Thus, throughout the years of studying the cultural impact of India on Southeast Asia, in this paper, the relevance of the term Indianization and the impact of Kalinga on Southeast Asia has been studied through broad aspects of religion, art, architecture, and trade. Now it is not a matter of regional bias, but moreover it has been slowly dawning upon the historians that the people of Kalinga were actually the pioneers of Indian colonization, which again happened in a peaceful means in the Indian archipelago and the Southeast Asia. The cultural influence of India began to spread with the growth of trading activities with the East. Now, Kalinga's position, as you all can see, the Kalinga's position, which is present in the Bay of Bengal, it offered it a strategic position or a location in which trading could be easily carried out. So there were important ports like which were known as Kalinga, Odra, Utkala, Dakshina Koshala, and these had important flourishing ports like the Tamralipti, the Palura, the Pithunda. These are some of the important ports that have been mentioned, which provided excellent sea routes for excellent trade. For external trade. Now, its commercial importance is evidence from the Greek writings, from the Buddhist literature, from the Chinese sources, from various folklores and festivals, as well as the archaeological excavations. Now, along with trade and commerce, some elements of Odissan culture were transmitted to Indonesia and several other parts of the Southeast Asian region, which are going to be discussed further. Now, Odisha has proved to be an area, like the place which Odisha occupies in the Indian map, it is such a place that it has proved to be an area where cultural elements from different parts of India have been synthesized to produce different forms of art, different forms of lifestyles, which is very diversified. Or developing itself within the syndrome of pan-Indian civilization, it has also developed unique characteristics. Now, all these features of Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism are deep-rooted in our soil of Odisha. Religious life has been dominated by the cult of Purushottam Jagannath, which has also taken an important place in the Southeast Asian socio-religious sphere. So, religious life in Odisha, Kalinga occupies a distinctive place in the art history of India due to its magnificent monuments and exquisite sculptures. Now, as we all know, there are three major types of architecture in India, but we also include the Kalingan architecture. The three major types are the Vesara, the Dravida, the Nagara architecture, but we also have the Kalingan type of architecture because of some of its unique characteristics. Now, it has been a recognized fact that the colonization of Southeast Asia had been done by the Simbiring tribe, and it has been observed that they traced their origin from a land called Keling or Killing, and these words are clearly derived from the word Kalinga, situated on the eastern coast of India between Mahanadi and Godavari rivers. Now, this is remarked by R.D. Banerjee that the earliest Indians with whom the Indonesians came in contact were the people of Kalinga. However, the idea of this theory that the people of Kalinga were the earliest to establish colonies in Southeast Asia has also been developed through various archaeological evidences and not just mere assumptions. As we also had Srila Tripathi sir, and he has mentioned in his book, The Maritime Archaeology, Historical Descriptions of Kalingas, and he puts forward that his main view, which is contributions of Kalinga to the civilization in the Southeast Asia. He uses various literary, archaeological, numismatic, and epigraphic sources to point out that before the invasion of Mauryan army, which is the Kalinga War in 261 BC, Kalinga was already very wealthy and powerful province. Why? Because of its maritime trade and colonial expansion. This further acted as one of the important reasons why Ashoka invaded Kalinga. Kalinga's trading activities and ports also find mention in several foreign accounts, which also include the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, Ptolemy's geographical studies, and several Chinese sources. Now there are three major hypotheses that explain Kalinga's influence on Southeast Asia, which includes the Brahmana hypothesis, the Kshatriya hypothesis, and the Vaishya hypothesis. And what is interesting to note here is that these three hypotheses are not mutually exclusive, and they are very interdependent upon each other. Now, not in any particular order, the first comes the Kshatriya hypothesis, which explains that the Indian cultural influence towards the Southeast Asia is because of the warrior class or because of the Kshatriyas, and this has also been supported by major historians like R.C. Majumdar and C.C. Birch. Now, the second hypothesis is the Brahmana hypothesis, which has been propounded by historians like J.C. Van Leeuwen. And in this particular hypothesis, he said that the Brahmanas of India were actually the carriers of cultural ideas from India to Southeast Asia. And the Indian Brahmanas were actually called eastwards. Why? Because of their magnanimous knowledge about various charms, various magics, and various literary sources of the Vedas. Now, the third hypothesis is about the Vaishya hypothesis, which postulates that the merchants began the Indian cultural penetration into the Southeast Asia. From trading establishments, the Indian merchants, the Indian culture was diffused to Far East. And this has been propounded by historians like I.W. Macbeth in his book, The Indianization of Southeast Asia, Reflections on the Historical Sources, as well as G. Coates in his book, The Indianized States of Southeast Asia. But this view has also been challenged by several historians who called that the Vaishyas or the merchant class were actually ineffective in carrying the cultural idea of Kalinga to Southeast Asia because of two important reasons. Because the right. So I'll wrap up. That the Vaishyas were ineffective because they did not have the cultural knowledge that is required, as well as they were not well versed in Sanskrit, and rather they were well versed in just the vernacular languages. Now, this is absolutely hideous to assume that the Vaishyas were not actually important. Now looking from Kalinga's view, we could see that it was in fact these merchants that actually began the commercial activities, and then then the cultural aspect was carried out. So as we all know that Kalinga had maritime activities going on in the ancient Funan kingdom as well, which presently includes Cambodia and comprise the lower valley of Mekong. Now, Funan was the oldest Indianized state of Indo-China Peninsula through the origin of ancient Funan, though the origin of ancient Funan is shrouded in mystery, but there are obvious reasons to believe that the origin of the Funan kingdom can be traced back to Kalinga. Why? Because according to the Chinese traveler, Chinese sources, Kang Tai, who visited Funan in the 3rd century CE, the first king of Funan kingdom is Hun Tien, that is Kaudinya. Now, several scholars have put forward the theory that the Indian origin of Kaudinya have named several places like Mysore, Kanchi, etc. Now, none of these scholars have taken considerable notice of the fact that the Kaudinya Brahmins who actually still live near Mahendra mountain range of Odisha. So this is So, yeah, as the time does not permit, I will have to wrap up. All these evidences included, and along with the various literary sources as well, what has to be kept in mind is that Kalinga was instrumental in shaping the history of Odisha, India as well as the Southeast Asia. Now, ancient Kalinga was the epicenter of both inland and foreign, as well as played a significant role in the dissemination of culture and civilization. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Next.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, going ahead, we have our serial number 3, Ankita Sharma.
Namaskar. A very warm greeting to the learned hall. I'm Ankita Sharma from Assam, and I'm going to make a presentation on my topic, that is tracing ties through select travelogues. Travelogues are considered as a documentation of the traveler's views of the land and people. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. Travelogues are considered as a documentation of the traveler's views and observation of the land and people, and also it documents the knowledge that a traveler gains from his person-to-person contact with the local people. So this work becomes laden with knowledge of local beliefs, local culture, belief system, oral history, etc. So I have selected these two works, A Short Trip to Bali, Indonesia by K.P. Mohandas and Malathi Mohandas, and in The Country of Jambu and In Search of Elephant by Dr. Kushal Kumar Sharma, to study how these traces of Indian culture is present in the contemporary Indonesian culture. So these two works talk about the author's trips to Bali and Sumatra respectively. So at the very outset, I believe that it is important to talk about the literature and civilization and the cultural linkages. So in its broadest meaning, culture means the system of shared behavior, custom, and way of life. And literature reflects life. Literature transmits the knowledge, the concepts, which in turn affects the cultural formation of a certain society. So we can see that literature and culture has a bilateral relationships. They are like dance and dancers, they are inseparable. So in this area, I think travelogue becomes a very important genre of literature to study, since they are a blend of description, anecdote, and personal commentary of the traveler. And since culture has a very broad meaning, I think I would like to clear about what I mean by culture in this study. So culture is learned and internalized. It can be called as the cultivated and collective behavior of a certain section of a society or the people of the society. So it is the shared way of life of an individual and the collective. The infinite ramification of culture encompasses the history of all aspects of life. So civilization can be called as the expression of culture. Civilization expresses culture, it's the external appearance of culture, whereas culture strengthens and originates a civilization. So I have taken an interdisciplinary approach towards culture to closely read the two texts. So first and majorly, I invoke Raymond Williams in his 1961 work when he said, and I quote, "Culture is a description of a particular way of life which expresses certain meanings and values not only in art and learning, but also in institutions and ordinary behavior. The analysis of culture from such a definition is the clarification of meanings and values implicit and explicit in particular ways of life. So this definition we see, it breaks down this very binary structure of high and low culture. So it means that to study culture, one also has to study the society. And then I invoke Robert H. Winthrop and Alfred Louis Kroeber when they talked about the culture of contact. Winthrop talked about diffusionism, which by he meant transfer of distinctive traits and culture from one society to another through ways such as war, trade, migration, etc. And then I also rely on Marcos, Graeber, and Adriansen. When they talked about uncovering of layers of consciousness of the past, they also talk about studying of cultural domains to do so, where the cultural domains include the study of museums, exhibition, commemoration, mass media, tradition, performance of memory, etc. So first we look at the performing arts. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Kechak dance. So it's a traditional Balinese dance which enacts mainly from Ramayana. It's a musical dance where the authors instantly draws a resemblance to the Kathakali dance. It's narrated by a Dalang. However, the authors also mentions that the narrator narrates the story in Balinese and also, I emphasize, in Sanskrit. However, later, after the performance, the authors also mentioned that, and I quote, "It's totally different to our concept of a dance performance." So I think this brings out how culture in Indonesia, where we can though find the traces of Indian culture and yet have maintained their own distinctive identity. The same goes for Tek Tok, a drama dance which is performed at Ubud. It's inspired by the Chak dance, and this enacts Mahabharata. And then there is the Wayang Kulit. It's a traditional shadow puppet play. It enacts the stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata. It upholds good against devil. However, we see that it's very interesting that they use leather while making the puppet. So this story is also contextualized, even though we have its stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and yet it is contextualized in this present socio-political problems also. And then we can see in terms of belief system. So the authors notes that the traditional Balinese house, they have one temple in each house, where they start the day with offering of cooked rice and garland. So I think in cooked rice we can see, I think even in here Jagannath also, the cooked rice is offered to the god. And back in my home state Assam, at the Kamaikya temple also we offer cooked food. However, then the author goes to talk about, they notice this very striking thing. The gods there, the deities there, wear this striped loincloth, where they call as lungi. So it's not really allowed here in India. Lungi is not really allowed. It's done. Okay. It's not really allowed even in academic institutions. However, there they also, the deities also wear lungi. So the people there also worship this water snake and tribeni, as you can also refer to the pictures that I have shared in the PPT. And then these traces can be seen in terms of art and craft, tourism, language, and food. In terms of art and craft, yoga has become one source of tourism in Indonesia. Language, in terms of language, Stuart Hall says that to understand one culture, one need to understand cultural codes, where language becomes the medium. In Indonesian language, well, they have airlines with names such as Garuda and Jatayu also. And Dr. Sharma's work mentioned Vishnu, who says that here even people that do not follow Hinduism also have names such as Vishnu, Arjun, etc. In terms of food, you can see that the betel nut and also rice is a staple food that is shared in both the countries. And here I have touched lightly in my study these 4 points. However, this can also be studied as a, or considered as a potential field of study. So local representation in literature, there is this representation of the native people's views on their local custom, beliefs, value system, etc. So I think literature can serve as a potential source of study where we can see the tradition through the local gauge. Here I have dealt with the traveler's gauge. And in terms of memory, local representation in the narration paves the way for representation of memory. So here Vishnu talks about that, and I quote, in our country, there is a strong influence of Indian tradition, especially Ramayana and Mahabharata. So, and then there is this collective imagination, which includes the whole of the society, the thought system of the society. So a psychoanalytic study could be attempted. Okay, I'll finish. Okay, so to conclude the study, we see this river-like nature of culture that includes and yet changes shape, also maintains its own distinctive traits in Bali and Sumatra. And however, a study from this shows how what this India and Indonesia never had ties where India imposed its own culture, because we see that the distinctive traits of Indonesia has maintained its uniqueness, which is opposed to what we see in America, where the Native Americans were forced to undergo acculturation. So this opens up an area of study that deals with memory, history, and culture. Memory maintains permanent evolution. It's a bond tying us to the present, and it nourishes recollection that may be out of focus, thus creating a personal history and can be contextualized into the present and wide-range understanding of history. And this may also open up study along the line of, as what Keightley and Pickering offers, how remembering operate as a representation of past, and also how we privilege memory. As Kuntia ma'am, she has rightly pointed out about this term, Indianization and Kalinganization. So I think we can also have a potential study along that line. So with this, I'll wrap up my presentation. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ankita Sharma. Now, moving ahead, we have serial number 4, Arunav Das.
Good afternoon. I am Arunav Das, Icich research scholar from Nalanda University, and welcome to my presentation. My presentation and paper topic is Maritime Trade and Migration, a study of Indian influence on Southeast Asia. So, sorry for inconvenience because I am caught by cold, so please pardon me. So I will not read out the abstract, rather I will just say the gist that this study aims to explore the religious, cultural, economic, and political influences on Southeast Asian countries by ancient Indian traditions through maritime trade and migration. So the goal of the study is to look at the debate of Indian colonization process that result from the emergence of regional marketplaces and subsequent uprising of cultural influences in Southeast Asia from the ancient times to before the European colonial era. The findings of the study offer the most recent developments in the understanding the facts about the role-playing strength, capability, and elements of Kalinga and Bengal that influence the discourse of Indianization in Southeast Asia is not a process of Indian colonization, rather an act of cultural assimilation and adaptation by the native people. So, maritime trade and migration, for the introductory sessions like Indian influences on Southeast Asian countries is not a prima facie improbable that Indian merchants and missionaries reached there by the sea route about the same period that they had explored both the far eastern and western regions by the land routes. Ptolemy in his geography also mentioned this region in the Indian Way after Java. The earliest inscription of Indochina bear the shades of the evidence of Indian Brahmic and Buddhist influences from the 3rd century AD. The early references to the trade with the Southeast Asia are rather ambiguous, passed through the many vicissitudes. The close cultural interaction between India and Southeast Asia began in the prehistoric age and continued until the beginning of the colonial rule. Indian maritime activities are one of the most captivating fields of the historical study, are as old as the civilization and may be attributed to the Harappan era. This study of historical ports, trading emporiums, trade routes, and maritime architecture are only a few examples of the various facets that make up the maritime studies. So, the early settlements of the numerous regions in Southeast Asia are significantly aided by the Kalinga people. I think I will skip this part because so many researchers and presenters already talked about the Kalingan influence on Southeast Asia and Indonesia, so rather I would discuss the influence of Bengal on Southeast Asia. So, my research question and research methodology. So the research question must be addressed that what part did the native people of the Southeast Asia play in the Indian colonization or Indianization process, and what kind of civilization before the introduction of Indian cultures features there, and did they actively engage in the process, or they simply the recipients? The proponents of the Greater India idea put forward the passive recipient theory, but it would be inaccurate to assume that Southeast Asia was just India's cultural annexation. So, methodology, collecting data and information based on the reports from the archaeological excavations are essential to narrating the relationship between India and Southeast Asia and reconstructing history over any ancient occasions. In highlighting the many capacities and attributes of Kalinga and Bengal devoted to Indian influences, this study used the historiographic methodologies and a review of historical writing principles, and the majority of the sources used literature and the archaeological evidences and contemporary studies and other archival sources, books and articles that have been published and also been mentioned as the secondary sources of information. And these cultural linkages between India and Southeast Asia, these things are already discussed by so many researchers. I will not discuss this because of time limitation. Rather, I will discuss the influence of Kalinga and Bengal in Southeast Asia. Before undertaking the formal procedure of Indianization, India mostly those from the ancient Indian provinces of Kalinga, Odisha, and Bengal made steady steam trips to Java and other Southeast Asian islands. Odisha and Bengal shared a boundary, and at some periods, these two territories shared a border, while at other times they existed as independent geographical entities. Since pre-Indianization was so greatly expedited during the Indianization, the people of Kalinga and Bengal traveled from the seaports through Palaura and Tamralipti. The Krishna and Godavari riverbanks are inhabited by the people from Indian eastern shore, Odisha and Bengal, who are instrumental in establishing Indian influences in Southeast Asia. They built homes and Irrawaddy River's delta and its extended regions, which eventually speed up the flow of travelers into Java. Therefore, Bengal has the power to connect India and Southeast Asia since prehistoric times and served as the route for the people from the other parts of India. And one of the oldest monuments is that connects to the connection of the Bengal and this region, Odisha, to Southeast Asia is the Borobudura temple in Java. It is the monument that rather than a structure in the Buddhist stupa tradition, with the themes showing the stage of the Buddhist enlightenment, the stupa was adorned, arises from the center of the sizable stepped pyramid foundation. So these are the socio-cultural and political circumstances that catalyzed as by the Indian cultural expansion. In addition to the marine trade, and Indians mostly from the Ganges Valley and reached the royal families of the Southeast Asia, particularly in Java. And according to George Quedes, as they were And this is the sea route. But according to George Coedes, they were introduced to the royal family association with the natural harbor remedies, with the Indian origins and humanitarian norms, a wealth of knowledge and amulets, and the Indian traders and explorers they able to get the royal welcome as a result. As my previous presentators, Aditi ma'am, she also discussed the caste system through the Brahmana theory, Kshatriya theory, and Vaishya theory. I am not going to this theory right now, but the Brahmana theory is very much important because the Brahmins have the influence on the Southeast Asian kings, and they convinced them to create the process of Indianization through culture and religion in Indonesia and other parts of Southeast Asia. So, the influence of Bengal. In the earliest phase of Indian migration, Bengal and Southeast Asian territories were linked politically. An unique political relationship existed between Ganges region and Funan from the middle of the 4th century until the 6th century. Even in the year of 250 CE, the king of Funan and dispatched an ambassador to the king of Bengal to investigate the variability of horse trade between two countries. 4 horses among the presents as the ambassador brought back to the Funan, which caught the attention of the king Funan, according to Botindra Mukherjee. At that time, the horse trade that was shipped from the northern India to a various region of Southeast Asia and China used the Tamraulipti port as the transit route. Bengal was important because of the religious cultural importance, and even though it only covered a tiny portion of eastern India, that religious movement with Bengali roots continued to play a crucial role during the Indian migration process and served as the shining example of Bengali culture. Bengal has identified itself as a distinctive territory with a regional personality, ancient times for the economic prosperity, adventurous geographic position, fertile soil, and excellent assistantship of the people. Through the architectural ideas and other forms of culture, these blending forces of Bengal influence Southeast Asian regions, and the several sources suggest that the involvement of Kalinga and Bengal is the annexation of Southeast Asia and Ceylon, and it is said that the bold spirit of Kalinga and Bengal served as the first impetus for India's historical activity and geographic expansion. The Oriya people have been referred to the Kalingish Shashika, the bold Kalingans, and the Sanskrit literature because of their extraordinary sense of adventure as initiative in earlier times. They loved the desire to establish the colonies far off places, and recent studies on Indianization have shown that Kalinga had a significant role in migration and the growth of the world. So indeed, the process of Indianization in Southeast Asia is not like the European colonial invention or expansion. Indians never grabbed the local power to rule over the territory. Rather, they influenced Southeast Asia in every possible Indian way. The local ruler accepted and spread the Indian culture, and the local people also accepted it cordially. So, in conclusion, Kalinga and Bengal indeed made a significant contribution to East Asian culture through their political and cultural expansion and into the areas mentioned above. And Kalinga had made a significant process in developing a plan for the greater India by disseminating Hinduism and Buddhism and Indian literature, art, and much more by injecting Indian blood into the diverse regions of the Asiatic hemisphere. And the relics of the past are still present now. And the aforementioned explanation points out the Indocentric thesis that Indian culture was completely imported to Southeast Asia. And theoretically, the interactions between Southeast Asian and Indian cultures are what led to the overall process of Indian cultural impact. And there has been a cultural convergence between these two areas. However, it was also an invasion of another culture, and it was the brilliance of the locals who selected those aspects of the foreign culture that either complemented their own or could be altered to fit their ideals. And many aspects of Indian culture have been retained throughout Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asians' tradition, religious practices, agricultural landmarks, and bear all traces of India's ancient history. And the millennia-old link between these two areas has become the key component in building a fresh partnership in this age of globalization. So these are my works cited list. And thank you, and if you have any question, please ask.
Thank you, Arunav Das. Now, serial number 6, we have Vishnu Priya Pani.
Good afternoon all. My name is Vishnu Prapani. My topic is about the significance of traditional New Year date according to the solar calendar followed in South and Southeast Asia. As we know, in India or also in Southeast Asia, we follow two New Year dates. One is January 1, that is according to Gregorian calendar, and calendar like solar calendar in Odisha, we observe our traditional New Year in April 14. In April 14, similarly, we observe traditional New Year as Vishu in Kerala, Bihu in Assam. Similarly, in Southeast Asia, traditionally we observe traditional New Year in April 14. Sinhalese, they observe their traditional New Year in Aluth, Arbuda, Thai. Their traditional New Year is known as Sankaran, and Burmese, the traditional New Year is known as Thingyan. All these traditional New Year observed in April 14. There is, and in Gregorian calendar, according to Gregorian calendar, we observe our New Year in January 1. Is it okay if I speak in Odia or Hindi? Okay. So, आमर ओडिशा रे आमे सेलिब्रेट करछंती ट्रेडिशनल न्यू ईयर अप्रैल 14 रे जोटा के आमे विषुव संक्रांति बोली कहताउ। विषुव संक्रांति यार अर्थ है से दिन विषुव रेखा जोटा कि आमे कहू आमे साइंटिफिक वर्ड सेलेस्टियल इक्वेटर से दिन सूर्य आमर विषुव रेखा उपर को आसंती। से सिमिलर डेटा आमे एबे एस्ट्रोनॉमिकली ऑब्जर्व करूचे आज वर्नल इक्विनोक्स डेट इन मार्च 21। तो आमे आम जो पंजिका रे आमे से डेटा अप्रैल 14 रे ऑब्जर्व करछंती किंतु एस्ट्रोनॉमिकली सेटा पडुची मार्च 21 रे। तो या भीतर रीजन कौन आमर जो मैंने पंजिका गणना थिले जेमती आमर एंशिएंट एस्ट्रोनॉमर आर्यभट्ट पठाणी सामंत से किसी भूल देखी भूल गणना करथिले ने या पछरे किछि साइंटिफिक रीजन अछि। या पछर बहुत बड़ साइंटिफिक रीजन अछि ताहला प्रिसिशन ऑफ इक्विनॉक्स। आमर अर्थ रो तीनटा मोशन थाए, गोटे हैला आमर रोटेशनल मोशन, गोटे हैला आमर रोटेशनल मोशन आ गोटे सॉरी ड्यू टू नर्वस आई फॉरगटन रोटेशनल मोशन आ गोटे सूर्य चारिपटे पृथ्वी जोटा बुलचंदी आम जानते 365 दिन जो अच्छी। थर्ड मोशन है आमर प्रिसिशन ऑफ प्रिसिशन मोशन जहाँफल आम जिते बड़े आकाश में देखती तारा गुड़ाक आम जी कन्स्टलेशन ऑब्जर्व करवा कि गोटे फिक्स स्टार कोऑर्डिनेट ऑब्जर्व करवा से प्रिसिशन इक्विनॉक्स लगी से गुड़ाक 71 ईयर रे गोटे डिग्री लेखाएं पछक घुंची थाए। तो आमे आमर वैदिक एस्ट्रोनॉमर माने एते टैलेंटेड थिले से सेतेबेले भी ए जिनसटा को नोटिस करथिले। आमर अप्रैल 14 रे जदि आमर गोटे आमर ज्योतिषाज्य माने कैलकुलेशन ऐड करंती आयन मास बोली आमे से अप्रैल 14 डेट रे से आयन मासटा को यदि पकेबा आमे डिटो मार्च 21 पाइबा जोटा कि वर्नल इक्विनॉक्स एस्ट्रोनॉमिकली देखुचंती। सेमती आमे नाविगेशन रे आमे आमर मेन जिनस होची नाविगेशन रे तारा मान को लक्ष्य करके से माने नाविगेट करथिले। तो जदि जो तारा मानिकर जो लॉन्गिट्यूड लैटिट्यूड जहाँ आम गणना करके रखाई जदि तार मेन इक्विनॉक्स पॉइंट रु ही लॉन्गिट्यूड लैटिट्यूड गुड़ाक आमे मेजर करती। लंगिट्यूड लाटिट्यूड मेजर करती जदि 71 इयर्स रे गोटे डिग्री लेखा से पछक घुंचब ताहले आमे सेटा गणना कर परिबानी सेइथिपई आमर एस्ट्रोनॉमर माने वैदिक एस्ट्रोनॉमर माने कौन करथिले ना से जगह रे से लंगिट्यूड लाटिट्यूड रे गोटे प्रिसिशन करेक्शन बा आयनमास जोग करथिले से जोग कले आमे तार ट्रू पोजीशन पाई परिबा तो यही एप्रिल 14 आम एमती नुहे कि खाली सेलिब्रेट आगु लिखाही कि अच्छी तो आम सेलिब्रेट कर दौरान न्यू इयर भाव में एमती ना ता पछरे कि बहुत बड़ साइंटिफिक रीजन अच्छी यही एप्रिल 14 श्रीलंका कंबोडिया म्यांमार सबू जगार एप्रिल 14 रे ही ट्रेडिशनली आम न्यू इयर ऑब्जर्व कर तो एस्ट्रोनॉमिकली भी एटा देखा गले आम इंडिया ट्रेडिशन सेठी अच्छी बोले आम ये प्रूफ पाई परिबा याकू आम यूज करके एबे रिसेंटली जो एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल वर्क चलती नाविगेशन एकारे प्रिसिशन करेक्शन केमिति आम ज्योतिषाचार्य माने करुथिले सेटा करेक्ट करके आम आमर कोऑर्डिनेट सब स्टार आउ प्लैनेट गुड़ाकर कोऑर्डिनेट गुड़ाक ठीक से मेजर कर परिबा से आमे तो आम ये बहुत सारा प्रूफ आम आमर पंजिकारु बा आम जो गुड़ाक खड़ीरत्न पंजिका हो गला नॉर्मली पठाणी सामंतर बही गला आर्यभट्ट हो गला से गुड़ाक केबेठू ये गुड़ाक गणना करके रखाई तो आम से गुड़ाक एग्जांपल भाव में नहीं कि आमर नाविगेशन रे हो गला ईयर कैलकुलेशन रे हो गला इक्विनॉक्स डेट सॉलिस्टिस डेट ये गुड़ाक काउंट करिबारे यूज करि परिबा सॉलिस्टिस डेट कौन होची ना आमर जो सॉलिस्टिस डेट होची आमर उत्तरायण गोटे है विंटर सॉलिस्टिस जोटा को आम उत्तरायण कहते आ गोटे है समर सॉलिस्टिस जोटा को आम दक्षिणायन कहते आमर उत्तरायण पड़ुची मार्च जनवरी 14 रे किंतु आमर इंटर सॉलिस्टिक्स अकॉर्डिंग टू एस्ट्रोनॉमिकली होची डिसेंबर 2022 रे तो आम एपर्यंत भी बनी चलती आम मकर संक्रांति को जनवरी 14 टाक ही नहीं कि बनी चलती विंटर सॉलिस्टिस किंतु आम जदि आयन मास करेक्शन देखा जदि प्रॉपर भाव में पंजिका आम तैयारी करबा आयन मास कैलकुलेट करके ताहले आम एबे आमर पंजिका अनुसार भी उत्तरायण मास डिसेंबर 22 रे स्टार्ट होची दक्षिणायन नॉट जुलाई 17 कर्कट संक्रांति रे दक्षिणायन हेनी दक्षिणायन आमर हम जून 21 रे जेबे पूरा 17 सूर्य आमर आसुचंती सेटा ट्रॉपिक ऑफ कैप्रिकॉर्न ऊपर को से दिन आमर जून 21 आसुचंती किंतु आमे सेलिब्रेट करचंती दक्षिणायन जुलाई 17 कर्कट संक्रांति रे जदि आमे ई प्रिसिशन करेक्शन बा आयनमास करेक्शन को इथरे ऐड करबा आमे ठीक वैल्यू पाई परिबा थैंक यू दैट्स ऑल
Thank you, Vishnu Priya Pani. Now we have serial number 7, Dr. Kishore Kumar Prishti. Please, sir.
Namaskar. Good afternoon to all. Respected chairpersons, invited dignitaries, and research scholars. So today, I am going to deliver on the topic challenges and opportunities of Indian mathematics to the Southeast Asia. So first of all, mathematics is such a subject. It is widely applicable in each and every field. And in everyday life, by our knowledge or our ignorance, we all are using mathematics. From ancient time till this IT age, in every age, in every period, mathematics develops the society, the culture of the world. And it not only linkage, make bonding or linkage between Kalinga and Southeast Asia, and it is a medium to linkage all over the world, because the mathematical formula is all over equal. It is equal in Odisha, in India, and in America, and everywhere. So, now it is essential to know about the ancient, medieval, and modern time Indian mathematicians and their contributions to mathematics, science, technology, archaeology, and world in general, Southeast Asia particularly. The scholars of mathematics like Barahamira, Brahmagupta, Aryabhata, Bhaskara to Lilavati, all are the eminent mathematicians and Indian mathematicians. They are given such things, very interesting thing, the zero, which is invented from India, the positive numbers, negative numbers, and the total number system, and the decimal numbers, all are the gift to the world from the Indian mathematicians. Trigonometry was also further advanced in India. In particular, the modern definitions of a sine, cosine were developed from India. The mathematical concepts were transmitted to the Middle East, China, and Europe, etc. Apart from the numbers, the idea of equations, in particular of algebraic equations, might also have come from India. So, mathematics education and values has been, for the last few decades, school mathematics education plays a key role in preparing a nation young to face and numerous economic, technological, and social changes and challenges. Singapore's Minister for Education identifies a strong foundation in mathematics as one of the four key ingredients which are decisive in whether an economy can make it to the ranks of knowledge of basic economic. The nature of the desirable values of Malaysian society to be taught by mathematics teachers in the Malaysian secondary mathematics curriculum. You also often find textbook writers and classroom teachers who deliberately design the story in any selected problem so as to promote socially desired mindset and behavior. Mathematics educational values stem from the norms and practices in the teaching of mathematics in the classroom. One example of a mathematics educational values is teacher felicitation of cooperative group learning. Though such pure interactions, pupils develop the affinity for confidence in learning in group setting, important life skill in our increasingly concerned society. Realizing a mathematics education in the Southeast Asian countries by inviting people question posing the test encourages the examination of a problem from different perspectives. At least two values are being promoted here. Firstly, there is sense that mathematical knowledge is open and transparent. This democratic perspective is encapsulated in Bishop's discussion of the mathematical value of openness. Secondly, there is a promotion of a mindset of approaching problems from different directions and angles. A challenge here may be to convince these teachers and teacher trainees of the impact and influence of mathematical and mathematics educational values, submerged as they often are the documents and in people, teacher-people interactions. They can also better understand how compacting values interact in the context of personal culture and social experiences in their own constantly evolving personal value systems. Lastly, Indian mathematics, as it developed in the Indian subcontinent and Southeastern Asian countries in the near past, the mathematics of classical Indian civilization is an glorious blended of the familiar in the Western world in general and Southeast Asian countries in particular. For the modern individual, Indian decimal place value numericals may seem familiar, and in fact, they are the ancestors of the modern decimal number system, familiar to the many of the arithmetic and algebraic techniques involving Indian numericals. Some historians of mathematics have developed these aspects of the Indian traditions, seeing in them merely a habit of role memorization and an inability to distinguish between true and false results. In fact, explanations and demonstrations were frequently added by later commenters. As we know now, at the doorstep of the new millenniums, one of the constants in a time changes, challenges, and uncertainties in Southeast Asia is expected to be continual state emphasis on education as a mean to achieve greater economic progress and social stability. The effective dimension of mathematics education in general and the transmission of the internalized value in particular complements the cognitive dimension to boost Southeast Asian people understanding and performance in this subject. So thanking you all.
Topic is challenges and opportunities of Indian mathematics in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
Very good topic, Captain Sarji. But you have deliberately ignored the contribution of Indian great mathematician Ramanujan to the whole world. That is called the number system.
Yes, yeah.
Which is divisible
Ramanujan
by
is the
any
hero of
number.
mathematics. In the mathematics era, Indian mathematician Ramanujan is the hero of mathematics.
His contribution, and give me a number which is divisible by all numbers.
Yes. It is a magic number 2520. Divide 2520. 2520. It is divisible by 0 to 10 in each digit. Sir, mathematics from very beginning, from Vedic age to till that.
Vedic age रे कौन period थी
The astronomy, all are mathematics. आमे जते हिस्ट्री देखुचे बर्तमान से जो मंदिर तैयारी होइছে जहाँ स्कल्पचर से सब तो मैथमेटिक्स अच्छे ना एटा क्यों तैयारी है एवरी हिस्टोरिकल मॉन्यूमेंट्स इन एवरी हिस्टोरिकल मॉन्यूमेंट्स मैथमेटिक्स इज माने completely attached.
Thank you, Dr. Kishore Kumar Prushti. Now we have a serial number 9, Dr. Krishnendu Rai.
Very good afternoon, respected chairpersons. Please put this light off. Put this light off, please. Respected chairpersons, my esteemed colleagues, and dear students. My topic is designing artifactual interaction between Odisha and Southeast Asia up to 1300 CE. Instead of reading this entire thing, my main concern is with the design of artifacts. So far as Southeast Asian lands and peoples and Indians are concerned, both have concentrated on two types of artifacts. Number one, material artifacts. Number two, non-material artifacts. Material artifacts ranging from teeny bead, terracotta bead, to architectural building. And non-material artifacts ranging from religious beliefs or thoughts or ideas about something. So both these artifactual ideas are or have been what we know as symbolic storage. Because every artifact, even a teeny terracotta bead, also is a symbolic storage of human talent, experience, capacity, skills, etc., etc. So also the case with non-material artifacts also. Even from time immemorial, we have been developing our religious beliefs, ideas, thoughts, etc., etc. All these are essentially non-material artifactual developments. So these are all symbolic storage, quote unquote. Now, naturally, question comes up, what is the design? Let me read out the design. Conceiving design, humans have not only produced but also modified both material objects like brass-made dishes as well as non-material things like a 2nd century CE Bangor inscription. Sanskrit portion I am skipping, meaning a vessel containing grain, and early Indian laws that I have just now told you, laws related to pledges and documents. Through these diverse artifacts, they have talked and thought about themselves. Thus, design may be conceived of as a way through which artifacts were made technologically so as to solve social problems in real-life situations. Another thing is, whatever we produce or modify, we have to communicate through this symbolic storage to our fellow or neighboring others what we want to say. So naturally the question of communication, idea of communication, material artifacts having no relation with alphabetic words constituted the non-verbal media through which people communicated their experiences to one another. They also communicated their thoughts verbally through inscriptions. Both these verbal and non-verbal modes of communication may be artifactually supported by a terracotta seal, 3rd century CE, with the images of a masted sheep, a swastika symbol, or Khorshti Brahmi mixed characters. These artifacts constitute texts which verbally as well as non-verbally convey some messages to the seal user. But these messages are derived from the context in which the artifact was made. In other words, the relationship of the artifact with other artifacts. Similarly, between Kalinga and Southeast Asia, both mainland and maritime the messages of artifactual interactions are writ large in valuable scholarly contributions, which I deliberately skip for time shortage. Now, my thrust area. The references to the use of the sheep symbol on the inscribed terracotta seal from Chandraketu God, 3rd century CE, reading the journey to or in 3 directions that by Yashoda, who has earned food wealth, unquote, might have motivated the Southeast Asian user, particularly those of southern Thailand, to adopt the same in connection with the overseas business transactions. For seals of stone or metal were used in maritime trading activities. In this connection, Kalinga's involvement in maritime relations with Southeast Asia from early Christian era do not escape our notice. It is revealed from the watercraft as depicted in the art of Odisha. The ship carried not only merchandises, but also early Indian Brahminical religious ideas and beliefs. This may be supported by the artifacts from southern Vietnam in the early Christian era. Thus we find Shivalinga motif to have been communicated to the people of southern Vietnam. Significantly, this Shivalinga motif was designed by using the tortoise shell and other potsherds as found from Gothap site. Even terracotta was also used to design the lingo phallic symbol motif as found from Okio. Tortoise shell and terracotta were possibly easily available and cheap materials, and therefore understandably used and designed for serving the religious needs of the many ordinary people of the region. Our attention has been drawn to several very small sized, not above 30 centimeter, 4-handed Vishnu, 5th century Vishnu images with chakra, wheel, shankho, kong, dondo, the rod, and a ball from southern Vietnam. Stone was used to preserve this Vaishnavite belief of the devotees. The very small size of the god is significant to note. Probably it was meant for the portable use of those who believed in and accepted Vishnu in their everyday life. Their beliefs were artifactually designed and served by the particularly skilled artisans. In the realization of the Odisha-Southeast Asia interrelationship, the most important factor is crossing the huge sea in which unknown fears or dangers were at every step. Naturally, the question arises about getting over the perils of the sea journey. Now, in the context of India, particularly Odisha, Southeast Asian interactions, we find the Buddhist deities of Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara, the merciful Lord, quote unquote, and Tara to have been worshipped. In the Shodhanva Pundarika Sutra, 5th or 6th century CE, it is found that if one falls into this ocean and thinks of Avalokiteshvara, he never sinks down. In other words, Avalokiteshvara had become conceived of as the savior god by the time. Odisha also did not lag behind in the material artifactual manifestation of human belief in Avalokiteshvara. The significant references to the 15 forms of the god found from different parts like Lalitagiri, Lokanath, Ratnagiri, Chintamani Lokeshwar, Udayagiri, Amogapasa Lokeshwar, Achyutarajpur, Khasarpana Lokeshwar, etc. of Odisha are indicative of the growing acceptability of Avalokiteshvara in several forms to the people of ancient Odisha. At the same time, we also find people to have invoked the goddess Tara as savior also in many forms such as Khodiraboni Tara, Singhonado Tara, both from Ratnagiri, Durgottarini Tara, Lolitagiri, Ratnagiri. This belief in the deliverance by the quote-unquote savioress goddess Tara of safety for a man as well as also merchants and navigators in the sea, is likely to have reached the people of maritime Southeast Asia through the watercraft as depicted in the Orishan art. Interestingly enough, according to an 8th century epigraphic message, it is said that a temple called Chondi Kalibening or Kalasan was dedicated to the goddess Tara in central Java. Our attention is also drawn to Tara images from Java and Sumatra, which were made of bronze because of its low corrosion effect. The Indian ideology of acquiring merit, this is called artifacts designed for acquiring merit. The Indian ideology of acquiring merit also appears to have been artifactually designed and followed in Southeast Asia. Thus, we have a 7th, 8th century epigraphic record from Nakhon Sawan province, Thailand, reading Namo Buddhaso, Namo Dhammoso. I am speaking linguistic assimilation, coming to the conclusive part. In lieu of conclusion, in this sense, so far, whatever artifacts we have found, not exhaustive. Day after day we are getting. And after some days, who can tell that there will be no more artifacts? So if in that case we get something new artifacts, new something else, something very unique thing, so far as religious beliefs are concerned, or beads are concerned, or any other architectural member is concerned, in that case, our conclusion or decision will be changed. So in that case, so that way I have put in lieu of conclusion. Human interactions, either intra-regional or intra-regional, through material or non-material artifacts appear to have been historically necessary for their survival in the social sphere. The paper explains that the designer approached the making of the artifact by taking into consideration, quote, how, when, and where the item was used by the user. In this connection, certain principles such as function, style, needs, particularly priorities, experiences, specific cultural contexts, and social connection or organization of the user for meaningful semantization were followed while designing the artifact for the user. Thank you all. No. Actually, Avalokiteshwar, another thing. Vishnu, another thing. So, Avalokiteshwar, Buddhist god. And that god has been invoked in different forms. My concern is, it has been found, it has been propitiated, it has been worshipped. That is not my point. My point is, its various forms. Why in various forms it was made, and how many forms have been found. I have counted at least 15 points from Umakanta Shastri's Sharma's paper. I have counted 15. He has mentioned 15 forms. So it shows its growing popularity. Maybe there may be more forms not yet found. Up to this, we have 15 forms. Even Tara also. That is how its popularity may be measured. How it became popular for those people who were engaged with overseas journey. Maybe in Tara, not necessarily overseas journey. In Tara, Ashto Mahabhayo Tara. There was Jalarnava Bhayo, Sharpa Bhayo, also Agni Bhayo. So in that case, overland journey may be possible. So how it is to be get rid of? So from that way, and Vishnu also, Vishnu in everyday life, but in that case, we have to wait for availability of further sources. Up to that, we have to accept these tiny forms of Vishnu. Even today also, you will get small Jagannath. small Jagannath, small Shiva Linga, just for portable use. Even today also we put in our locket, so that we always try to live a better life, free of dangers. We believe that our beloved God, our worshipped God will save us if I put it in my locket or in my pocket. So that way they worship. And my concern is how it was designed and why it was so small, designed in so small form. For whom? That is my concern. Because in archaeological context, we have many things we find. And so far as Southeast Asia and India, we have many things from different sites. That is another thing. But point is why we find size variants, shape variants, color variants. Why? For whom it was made? Because all these artifacts are, I think, to be interpreted or understood in the context of human activities. Because these were made by humans, used by humans. So far as humans are concerned, their living is concerned, life is concerned, we have to take note of these size variants, shape variants, historically. Certainly within a time frame. This is why. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes. No. Actually, we have Ananta Sajja, and we have no. In Kalinga's context, I am not concerned with that part, but only we have this form of Vishnu from Southeast Asian side. So I am concerned with its size. Why is made so small size? Maybe it was not used for maritime purpose. May not be. My concern is designing. And connection, not necessarily maritime. It might have been overland also. No. Actually, designing from that point of view, I am concerned with designing. Even stupas or votive tablets were also carried across the sea. Only my assumption, only to get free of dangers. That is belief. Okay, thank you. Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnanendu Rai. Now we have serial number 11, Dr. Krishna Chandra Das. Please, sir.
Good afternoon to all of you. Chairperson, eminent Professor Sanjay Acharya sir, my teacher. Professor Padmalaya Mahapatra from Utkal University. In front of the dais, eminent professors like your Professor Patita Bhavan Mishra sir, Dr. Pratip Kumar Mishra sir, Dr. Sila Tripathi sir, organizer of this 3 days international seminar, Professor Padhi sir, and also the research scholars and participants from outside India, as it is international one, from Southeast Asian nations. Today, it is the second day. Already we have listened to many eminent scholars from this podium, and the fourth plenary sessions. So myself, Dr. Krishna Chandra Das, lecturer in history, Upendranath College, Baleshwar, before you to present on the proposed topic, Kalinga and Southeast Asia nations, the civilizational linkages. So here, the Kalinga means one of the ancient names of our beloved Odisha. So sometimes it was Kangoda, Kenjali Mandala, Odra, etc. So Kalinga here, it implies our region. Southeast Asia. So it's a major regional hub in the world. Southeast Asia, the regions like Indonesia, all are the islands, Cambodia, Brunei, Java, Bali, Sumatra. Already it has been discussed in a many large scale extent. And our Kalinga, how it is linked in a civilizational way. As you know, the civilization to which we will call as a civilization, it is a augmented or highly developed phase of a human being or a human settlement. As whenever the peoples were living in a stone era, we are calling the stone age, not stone civilization. But when we saw the people were living in a developed manner, in a fully phased manner, fully manifested manner, the civilization concept came. Example, Indus Valley civilization in our India. So many of the participants here, we know all that. So via my topic or subtopic, rewriting Kalinga and Southeast Asian nations' histories, means the past events, past happenings, how we are related to Southeast Asian nations. So if I will relate civilizationally The main apparatus will come, the society. It's a major one, as after 19th century, we have been given emphasis on social history. So without civilized society, without the formation of social norms, values, we cannot think of about the civilization. Then will come the religion. It's a belief one. So without religion or without believing in an unseen power, no society can develop, I think, as we have seen from time immemorial. The people are religioustic or religious fearing or having religion. So society, religion, then politics, then economy, then cultural growth, the culture or a way of life. Without cultural development, we cannot think of civilization. And also, under civilizational values, our food habits, dress, our art, architecture, painting, so many things are there. So many apparatus are there. Under civilization it will come. So if we will negotiate or interlink these values with the distant land, Southeast Asia, all these linkages are appropriate. One, because so within this today's seminar, we have listened many things from the eminent professors or from the people of Southeast Asian nation peoples, those who have come here and they have elaborately discussed about their lifestyle and their linkages. So all these linkages we will find in our Kalinga. So be it in our temples, already many things we have been discussed. I am not going in detail. So in temples, in temple paintings, art, architecture, icons, boat, giraffe, elephants, etc., etc., we can trace that we had strong linkages with the Kalinga and Southeast Asia. So under Kalinganization or Indianization or a Greater India or a Indian diaspora or a Indian milieu, whatever name we call or whatever relation we will link, it would be shorter one. So from the sources, it has been proved that be it a archaeological source or a literary source or foreign accounts, whatever may be. So it has been proved that we had a past relation with the Southeast Asia, no doubt. But taking into that, in the present day, globalization day, if we can encase it, our beloved Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, in his speech, he had told Bali Yatra, or he is going to distant lands for a connectivity or a development of India, etc. So, from Kalinga, we can take initiation in connecting Southeast Asian nations for our development of Odisha as well as India. So, in the sphere of strategic, in the sphere of economy, in the sphere of culture, no doubt. So now I want to show my all the slides, please. So rewriting, so already I have discussed this one for Southeast Asian nations. So due to time short, I am just summarizing. So I have given my full paper. So thank you all. Actually, from Kalinga and Southeast Asia, so as in a religion aspect, so they have shown that our Jagannath temple or Jagannath ji is very revered in Southeast Asia. So now it is more than 21 Jagannath temples in Indonesia. So they have depicted through that painting that we had a religious bonding or a religious intermixtion of Kalinga and Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishna Chandra Das. Now, going ahead, we have serial number 12, Dr. Mahendra Kumar Swain. Sir, please.
First of all, it is said that a common man can create history, but a genius can write history. This quotation is applicable to my direct teacher and my pathfinder, Professor Sanjay Acharya sir, one of the greatest archaeologists in India, and Padmanabhan madam, and the learned delegates, and my dear students. From Sanjay sir to Professor Sila Tripathi sir, from Padmanabhan Madam to P.K. Mishra sir. The history of ancient India is widening and transcending. Some historians say that no Herodotus and no Thucydides was born in India, therefore the history of ancient India is darkness. Perhaps it is totally wrong or right, my learned delegates already decides. Actually, in this session, in this conference, it is easy to speak about the conference, but it is too difficult to arrange such type of ancient Indian historical conference. Thanks to the convener and chairman, sir. Actually, blossoming potential and achievement of a research scholar does not come in an overnight. Continuous perseverance is necessary to unfold the latent talent of a research scholar. Actually, research scholar होबाटा जतिकी भाग्यर कथा आमे यदि particular source को either it is archaeological source or it is secondary source आमे यदि follow करी परिया ताले किसी हिस्टोरियन मैंने जो कहते हिस्ट्री इज ए सनसेट डिपार्टमेंट ता फल्स हो सो आम तो किसी कहबार ना आमर जो डिस्टिंग्विश डेलीगेट्स लर्न स्टॉलवार्ड्स मैंने ऑलरेडी कही सारी हियर सर 2 or 3 minutes भीतर मैं जस्ट कही दूँ सर इन दिस पर्सपेक्टिव माय पेपर प्रोवाइड्स comprehensive and insightful historical perspective on the overseas trade and commerce between India and Southeast Asia, a historical perspective. Here, I emphasize into various aspects, including the geographical factors that facilitated trade and commerce, the cultural exchange, and the impact of Indian colonization in this region, because api sonnamai lanka name rochati lakmana, janani janmabhumisya sargadapi garyas. तेणु आमपाई आम इंडिया बा आम माटी बा आम कलिंग बा आम उत्कल जदि बाहर स्टेट रे तांकर कल्चरटा फेमस हो पारछि दैट इज अ ग्रेट बूस्ट फॉर द रिसर्च स्कॉलर सो हियर आई इफेक्टिवली हाइलाइट्स द रोल ऑफ इंडियन ट्रेडर्स एंड मर्चेंट इन एस्टाब्लिश ट्रेड एंड कॉन्टैक्ट विथ साउथ ईस्ट एशियन कंट्री बिकॉज न ही ज्ञान सदृश पवित्र मिह विद्यते बिकॉज नॉलेज इज द इम्पोर्टेंट सोर्स ऑफ historical documents. So, and how this led to cultural and political influence rather than merely economical exploitation. So, this type of perspective are the depth to the understanding of historical interaction between the two regions, particularly India and Southeast Asia. So, my paper touches upon the influence of Indian culture on art, architecture, and religious practices in Southeast Asia. Already आमर शिला त्रिपाठी सर कही सारी आम जो P.K. Mishra sir कहले without मंथन there is no चिंतन sir, this is a great boost for all the research scholars. Thank you sir. So showcasing the profound impact of Indian interaction on the region cultural landscape. So last but not my word is this type of a conference has the potential to be a highly valuable contribution to the understanding of a historical relationship between the two regions. Here, my sincere grievances to my sir, Sanjay sir, please arrange this type of seminar, particularly in Odisha point of view. Therefore, our youngster and our research scholar benefited most. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Mahendra Kumar Swai. Now going ahead, we have serial number 13, Dr. M.D. Yamin.
Esteemed Chairperson, Professor Acharya sir, esteemed co-chairman, Professor Madam Mahapatra, eminent historian, though he is not here, Professor P.P. Misra sir, my guru, and the learned assembly. As you know that as a history student, we believe on record and evidences. History always look after and go into the depth, and this discourse may be start. Without the evidences and without the sources, we cannot write history. It is fact and true behind it. My paper is, at the outset, I am Dr. Muhammad Yamin from Khariyar Autonomous College, Khariyar, District Nuapada, Odisha. My paper is, sir, reassessing the ports of Kalinga in light of cultural contact with Southeast Asia. Kalinga, as you know, what we are now having, Odisha. It was earlier in ancient time known as Kalinga, and we are also proud of being. We are also using it very proudly. And we are still then inheriting that culture having the base since from ancient period. The legacy is behind it, and we are also very proud of that. And inheriting that legacy, still then we are continuing it. As you know that, and we are also having the cultural contact and diaspora and discourse has continued, how the Kalingan people had contact with the Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia, Malaya, Burma, Thailand, so and so forth. All these countries were once upon a time having contact with the Kalingan people. As you know that it was in earlier time, there was no such contact. It was only the contact with sea route. And the Kalinga ports are the most or major part which played, through which the Kalinga people had made contact with the Southeast Asian nation. Since then, it is now continue now also. Ports are my point is that how the port played the major role. It was in ancient period in which the people of that Kalingan people had made contact with the Southeast Asian countries. The ports are play the most important role. So many ports, I have to go through the sources I want to tell from which we are knowing it. The sources are generally, the historicity behind it, that from that we are making our history to grown up. Rigveda is the earliest literary references about the sea voyages and its related hazard of India. The adventure story of Bhuja, son of Tugra, in the middle of the sea, and his rescue by the Aswini is one of the such account. There are records of voyages of the people of Kalinga on high sea and ocean found in Buddhist Jataka, Hitopadisa and Katha Sarita Sagara. The Arthashastra of Kautilya also gives accounts of the sea voyages of the Kalingan people. The Mauryan period witnessed development of seaports at the western sector and also simultaneously the eastern sector. It was believed that the Ashoka the Great had spread the message to far-off places like Egypt, Syria, Macedonia, Syrian, Epirus and Ceylon. and several other countries. Historians believe that one of the cause of Ashoka to lead invasion to Kalinga was the port in which to conquer the port. When he conquered the Kalinga, that means he conquered ports. Through ports, he can maintain contact with the Southeast Asian countries. It was cited by, and substantially it was also proved by some historians simultaneously, and to continue now. That port was the region, one of the regions for which Ashoka the Great led invasion against Kalinga. And we know it that it was the first and last war of Ashoka. And history told us that from which he learned everything and he changed himself. That was a different story. Different historical fact behind it that. There are also sources like geography of Ptolemy is also one of the important fact or sources in which we are knowing about the ports of Kalinga. The world in which from the geography of Ptolemy, indication of the well-developed ports like Tamralipti, from which the Kalinga people had maintained trade connection with the Southeast Asian countries. Periplex of Erythrina Sea is an unknown author, from which we are also knowing about the Kalingan port. These are the sources in which, or the historicity behind it, from which we are knowing about the ports of Kalinga, by which it was in ancient time, Kalinga people had made contact, trade communication, and through trade communication they had also maintained cultural connection with the Southeast Asian countries. As I have told you, time and again, the culture cannot remain stagnant. It will spread with the peoples to people contact. If people are not in contact with other countries, that means the culture will not be grown. And like that, by this synthesis, the people of Kalinga had made contact with the Southeast Asian countries, and for which the impact fall upon us, that the Kalingan people had cultural reach, as it was historically proved. Simultaneously, that culture also spread to Southeast Asian countries, and they also known till then. We are believing that it is also the historical fact behind it, that the Kalingan culture is still continue in the lands like Indonesia, Malaya, etc., and so on and so forth. As we know that Kalinga contact with Southeast Asia can be traced back to Neolithic period. It is a vast coastline located between the two great deltic regions of the Gangas on the south and Godavari and Krishna on the, Ganga on the north and Godavari and Krishna on the south side, had played the important role in India's cultural contact. Ports were required for overseas cultural contact. Kalingan ports were developed at the strategic point and serve as the medium of export of article and cultural intercourse. Since ports played the vital role for the sea voyages, these were lifeline for the Kalingan peoples in cultural contact with Southeast Asian country. Some of the important ports which I mentioned here, I wish to mention here that, like Tamralipti, some of the important ports, which I want to very shortly and not say I can mention here. Tamralipti, Chelitalo or Manikpatna, Palur or Dantapura, Pithunda, Sonarpur, Barua, Kalingapatnam. These are the ports which were time and again mentioned by the historian and is also substantially proved. First one, Tamralipti. Tamralipti was the most important port of the entire sea coast of India. situated at the Kalingan coast. It was the significant seaports of India which has connected both by land and river within India and foreign countries. During ancient period, Kalinga had established maritime trade with foreign countries. From this port, there was regular sailing of vessels which proceeded along the sea coast of Bengal and Burma and made direct voyages to the Malaya Peninsula and to the sea, East Indies and Indochina and beyond. It was the gateway of daring sailor and missionary. Ships laden with cloth, silk, copper exported to far-off countries like Ceylon and coast of Arabian Sea. India's maritime contact with Southeast Asia and China, in which Kalinga played an important role, traceable to 3rd century BCE. On the basis of inscription of Pallava and Grantha script, Fahian, the Chinese traveler who visited India during Gupta period, he took sea route from the Tamralipti port on which back journey passing through Ceylon and Java. Modern identification of Tamralipti is Tamluk in Midnapur district of West Bengal, which was once upon a time within the kingdom of Kalingan Empire till recent time. It was located at the confluence of the river Rupanarayan and the Bay of Bengal. The present name Tamluk is believed to have derived from the same Tamalika from Tamralipti ship sailed along the coast of Bengal and Burma. The second important port was Manikpatna, or it was also known as Cheli Talo. When Sang, the Chinese traveler who visited India in 7th century CE, had accounted following description on his travelogue about the Chelitalo port. It was in the Uta Odra country. It was situated on the Uta country, that is near the shore of ocean in the southeast kingdom, that the town was above the sea level of 25 miles. It contained many rare stone, beautiful Buddhist monastery where it was as account in the Wensang account mention all these things. The Buddhist monastery were also traced there. He further states, from where merchants depart from distant countries and stranger came and go and stop on their way. To draw out the identification, present location of Chelitalo or Manikpatna, Manikpatna has been resembled to the identification of the port Chelitalo, which is logically proved so far. Manikpatna was an important port, urban and trading center for merchants situated on the bank of the water, connect the lake of Chilika with the Bay of Bengal. Discovery of Kusana coin from the vicinity of this port gives ancient garb. The third important port is Dantapur or Palur. The earliest reference of Palur is as a port appears in the work of Ptolemy's geography during 2nd century CE, who has named it Palora. It acted as a base for the preparation of the map of Ptolemy and the only port of departure on the east coast on the Coromandel coast. The Polora was Dravidian origin, the name itself. The Polora or Polor was a Dravidian origin and was lined with many such names ending with or ura. The word Polora therefore should be Palu, meaning tooth in Tamil, and Ura or Pura meaning city. Paluru was one of the flourishing seaport of ancient Odisha, ancient Kalinga, we are known. The earliest reference of Palur port appear in the Ptolemy's geography during 2nd century CE, who named it as Palora. Nagarjun Konda inscription of 3rd century CE of Biripurusadatta, 11th regnal year, say it was an important maritime emporium. Buddhist Jataka identify Palur as Dantapura. With this uncertainty, the identification of the Palur is yet to be ascertained. The finding still continue. We are not yet reached to the finality now. The fourth important port is Pithunda. Pithunda was a flourishing port at the coast of Kalinga. Kharavela Hathigumba inscription mention it was a metropole which Kharavela conquered in his 11th regnal year. Uttara Dhyana Sutra of Jaina mention about Pithunda as port town of Kalinga. These are the inscriptions in which we are knowing about the Pithunda port. Sources behind it. Ptolemy also refer a metropolis named Pithunda and locate it on the country of Moisulia between the mouth of Moisulia, Godavari and Mananda or Mahanadi and equidistance from both. In this consideration, it could be located somewhere near Chikakul, which could mean the same as Kalinga Nagara, the capital of Kalinga. Another port was Sonapur. It was an important seaport of ancient Kalinga. It was situated at the sea coast of the Ganjam, where Bahuda River entered into the Bay of Bengal. Bahuda River forms sands which create obstruction to ship, for which port lost its importance. One point of time it was an important shipping center for these sailors. Another important port was Barua or Barwa on the sea coast, about 33 miles south of present Barampur city of the southern Odisha. Now it is in Andhra Pradesh, 6 kilometers from Sompet and 15 miles from the coast of Mahendra mountain. The river Mahendra Tanaya, which originated from the Mahendra Giri, flowing to the east, falls in the Bay of Bengal near Barua. And the last one, Khalkapatna. One another sort nutshell I wish to mention here that Kalingapatna. Kalingapatna port was also there. It was located in the mouth of river of Nagavali in the Srikakulam district of Andhra Pradesh. The name Kalingapatnam itself means the city of Kalingan. It was simultaneously capital and port town of Kalinga. Archaeological excavation conducted here suggested that it was a fortified city since 3rd century BCE. The last one, the last important port was in this discourse, Khalkapatna. Khalkapatna in present Puri district of Odisha, it is situated 11 kilometers east of Konark in the district of Puri, left bank of Kusibhadra river, which falls into the Bay of Bengal 3 kilometers to the northeast. It is also true that the right bank of the river Kusibhadra forms a narrow barrier of sand between the side. Barrier of sand between the side and the bay and serving as a groin wall must have provided the side with ideal landing facility and protection from over flooding to the storm. Most of the ports flourished in Kalinga coastlines were inland ports located on river banks to establish maritime trade contact with Southeast Asian countries. Though the excavations, some of them have been discovered, while many of them still awaiting to be found out, which may further glorify our maritime heritage, and above all, the port industry would be gear up for a superior prospect. Thank you very much.
Any questions on this interesting topic? Ports. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, sir. Sir. Yes, sir. It was mentioned in
Sir, are you talking about
It was
Pithunda?
Pithunda. Sir, I wish to tell you that Pithunda was a flourishing seaport of Kalinga. Kharvela Antigua inscription, it was described there. Kharvela, in his 11th regnal year, those sources behind it that the Hathigumpha inscription described it. In his 11th regnal year, he led an invasion against Pithunda. It was a port city and also simultaneously mentioned as the metropolis. It is also substantiated by the Jaina sources. Uttradhyana Sutra also cited this one. At date, sir, it was 11th regnal year of Kharvela. Categorize it as 13th regnal year. And this incident was took place. That's why it is historical proof. We are having the substantiate information behind it. That's why we have to believe it. Yes, yeah, you mentioned it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. M.D. Yamin. Now moving ahead, we have serial number 15, Dr. Aparna Mukherjee. Ma'am, please.
Jai Jagannath. Good evening, everybody, and eminent persons on the dais and in the hall. I am Dr. Aparna Mukherjee, a cost accountant by profession. I did my PhD from Sambalpur University under Dr. P.P. Misra. He is my guru. So my title of my topic is Kalinga and Cambodia, Cultural and Commercial Rapprochement. The historical study of the Kalinga-Cambodia cultural and commercial rapprochement provides valuable insights into the trans-country trade networks, cultural exchanges, and religious diffusion in the ancient and medieval periods. It highlights the interconnection of different regions and the role of maritime routes in facilitating these interactions. It sheds light on the diverse influence of Kalinga that contributed to the development of Cambodia's rich cultural heritage. The subject is vast, but the time is very short, so I think I am concentrating only on art and architecture. Hindu-Buddhist arts. Both Kalinga and Cambodia were deeply influenced by Hindu and Buddhist traditions. This factor resulted in the integration of artistic elements from Kalinga into Cambodian art. Iconography and deity representation. Kalinga art has a wide range of Hindu and Buddhist deities. Depiction of these deities influenced Cambodian art. Many iconographic elements, gestures, and postures seen in Kalinga art found their way into Cambodian sculpture and iconography. Architectural influence. Kalinga architectural style, characterized by intricately carved stone temples and stupas, had a strong impact on Cambodian architecture. Artistic elements like elaborate entrance gateways, towering spears, and bas reliefs depicting religious events were adopted by the Khmer Empire in Cambodia. Sculptural traditions. Kalinga style of stone carving and sculpture influenced the sculptural traditions of Cambodia. Though the Khmer art developed its own unique style, the intricate detailing, refined craftsmanship, and iconographic conventions of Kalinga art played a role in shaping Khmer sculpture. Mythical creatures and deities. Both artistic traditions feature depiction of mythical creatures and divine beings are a prominent feature in both the art form. Mythical creatures like Garud, Nag, Makar, Ashur, and celestial beings like Gandharvas and Apsaras are alike. Narrative and symbolic representations. Both art forms convey narratives and symbolic representations where designs often hold meanings related to protection, identity, and cultural heritage. Like temple reliefs depicting scenes from Hindu and Buddhist epics conveying stories and moral teachings. The Shiva temple of Bentesrei, constructed by Yagya Baraha, spiritual guide of Angkor King Rajendra Varman II of 10th century CE, is very similar to the Bhubaneswar temples in the richness and splendor of its architectural designs and carvings. The three-tower shrine was constructed on a single terrace. Similar to the Bhubaneswar temples, the temple of Bentesrei and also the Prakhan temple has shikhars in shape of carved arches over doors and wooden windows for providing light in the corridors. The carved figures on the walls of Cambodian temples have similarity with the Kalinga temples. The influence of the Kalinga style is apparent in hairstyles, designs of heavy earrings, crown, waist girdles, etc., shown to be worn by the female figures in the sculptures of Angkor period. For example, female figures on the north door at the Vishnu sanctuary of Bentesrei. The Cambodian sculptors and artists showed their skill in carved figures, decorative details, stone walls, and lintel stones. There are bas reliefs showing episodes of Indian mythology. The bas reliefs were the most important feature of the Kambuja sculpture and exhibit balance, harmony, and rhythm of very high skill, just like found in the temples of Kalinga. The sculptures and bas relief carvings that decorate the gallery walls of Angkor Thom and Angkor Wat appear to have been influenced by the Kalinga art. Like temples of Bhubaneswar and the Angkor Wat temple, there are open terraces on both sides of the entrance with halls of small shrines. The 5 towers of the central temple of Angkor Wat symbolize the symbolic Mount Meru of the Hindu cosmology. The origin of Cambodian architecture is essentially Kalingan, but there has been remarkable evolution that can be perceived in the galleries, central towers, and pyramidal mass. The artistic exchange between Kalinga and Cambodia played a significant role in shaping the artistic landscape of the region during the ancient and medieval periods. Cultural exchange between Kalinga and Cambodia have occurred mainly through trade, travel, religious pilgrimage, etc. These interactions facilitated the exchange of ideas, philosophies, and cultural practices. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aparna ma'am. Now we have serial number 18, Swarnalata Mahari.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respected chairpersons, my dear friends, delegates, and dear students. I am Swarnalata Mahari, lecturer in history. Now I am going to present my topic, the commercial and cultural relationship of Kalinga with Southeast Asian countries. As we know, Kalinga is one of the most important ancient nomenclatures of Odisha, and it occupied a prominent place among the different political units of this land. It had played a very significant role in the ancient Indian history. The extent of Kalinga's territory varied from time to time according to the ruling dynasties and different rulers. According to some scholars, the ancient Kalinga was a vast territorial entity extending from Ganges in the north to the Godavari in the south. The fertile coastal plains stretching from the mouth of the river Ganges up to the river Godavari, along with the mountains and forests, gave a natural boundary to Kalinga. According to the Mahabharata and Pliny, the ancient capital of Kalinga was Dantpura. The capital Dantpura has been identified with Palur, an ancient fort at the mouth of river Rusikila in Ganjam district. In the 4th century BC, Kalinga was under the suzerainty of the Nandas. In the 3rd century BC, Kalinga was conquered by the mighty Maurya ruler Ashoka. The great Mauryan king Ashoka mentioned the defeated peoples as Kalingans. So it is presumed that Kalinga not only the name of a country but also the name of a tribe or race. In the 2nd and 1st century BC, Kalinga was a vast and powerful kingdom. Towards the middle of the 1st century BC, Kalinga was remained under the mighty ruler Kharavala. After Kharavala, the vast territory of Kalinga started to reduce and confined to a small kingdom. With the passage of time, the eastern Ganga rulers established their rule over Kalinga in 5th century AD. The eastern Ganga king Hastivarman had conquered South Kalinga from Prithvi Maharaj of Istapur and established his capital at Kalinga Nagar, which has been identified with Mukhalingam of Srikakulam district in Andhra Pradesh on the river bank of Vamsadhara. The Gangas rose to be an imperial power in 1038 AD when Vajrahasta V came to the throne. During the early part of the 12th century, Chodaganga Deva, the mighty king of Ganga dynasty, extended his rule over the whole of Odisha and shifted his headquarters to Cuttack. Once again, the Kalinga assuming its previous shape, stretching from the river Ganges to the Godavari under the rulership of Chodaganga Deva. Trade and commerce. In ancient and medieval period, economic prosperity of Kalinga played a vital role to encourage the people to start their trade and commercial relations with the other countries. The fame of Kalinga's maritime power had spread far and wide. The adventurous spirit of Kalinga people has been proved by the colonization of Southeast Asian islands. The commercial and cultural relation was too potential between Kalinga and Far East islands of Java, Sumatra, Bali, and Malayan Peninsula. From ancient times, Kalinga carried her trade and commerce both inland and maritime, keeping her relationship with outside world. Her control over land routes and sea routes gave her a positive result to carry out her trade and commerce smoothly. The ancient customs about commercial significance are still continuing in Odisha to commemorate the voyages of their forefathers. The tradition of Boita Bandana or worshipping the boats in Kartika Purnima clearly pictures the glory of the past events. The wind was favorable in the month of Ashada to Kartika for the voyage of the ships. The adventurous Kalingans used to return in the month of Kartika. Thousands of people gather and worship the ships on the bank of the rivers to perform the festival of Kartika Purnima. The women sing folk songs narrating the details of the voyage. Similarly, Bali Yatra or voyage into the island of Bali is a famous festival of Odisha, which is celebrated with pomp and splendor on the bank of river Mahanadi. These festivals show the adventurous spirit of Kalingans by maintaining excellent trade and commercial activities in abroad. Articles of import and export. The chief exports were silk clothes, elephants, precious gems, camphor, musk, elephants, rosewater, sandalwood, drugs, pepper, and betel nuts, etc. As it is known from the inscription that Kalinga was famous for the elephants, and the king of Ceylon received a plenty number of elephants from Kalinga. The elephants and diamonds were the main items of overseas trade. The diamonds of Sambalpur were very valuable and found abundantly in Persia, Egypt, and Greece. The geographical location of Kalinga with a coastline on the Bay of Bengal gave her an outlet of foreign countries and facilitated overseas trade for earliest times. The maritime trade of Kalinga in ancient and medieval period became possible with the help of a number of ports which were played the vital role for the sea trading activities. The coastline of Kalinga was spotted with several seaports. Few of them were natural in nature. For maritime trade and commerce, ports were acted as the lifeline of the people of Kalinga. It served as the medium of export and import. The contact between Kalinga and the foreign countries became possible due to the emergence of such ports. It is attested by the Buddhist as well as the Jaina text, which bears evidence of Kalinga's overland and seaborne trade with the outside world through the ports like Tamralipti, Pallur, Chelitalo, and Pithunda, etc. From very early times, Kalinga maintained her commercial and cultural relationship with the neighboring countries of Southeast Asia, as it is revealed from numerous inscriptions, literatures, and traditions preserved in Ceylon, Myanmar, and countries of the Eastern Island. It is very interesting to note that the southern coast of Myanmar, or Brahmadesa, which is also known as Suvarnadipa, the Pegu coast was known as Kalinga, whereas the northern region was known as Utkala. The Buddhist literature Mahakarma Vibhanga tells that Kalinga and Kosala have maintained their commercial intercourse with Burma. Kalinga's merchants exporting such expensive items of merchandise like diamonds and importing gold from Suvarnabhumi, Burma. The ruins of an old ship discovered from an excavation near Rangoon might have belonged to the Kalinga merchants. It is also noted that the Telangas who had set up the kingdom of Thatan had migrated from Kalinga. The people of Mankher tribe of Burma have been described as Kirato in ancient literature of India, who have earned the fame as the cultural ambassadors of Indian region and culture. During 5th to 6th century AD, in 573 AD, they established a new kingdom in that area, and they had named as Ramanya Desa, means beautiful country, with its capital Hansavati or modern Pegu. To the west of that country, there was a country named Pyu with its capital Srikhetra. A number of Buddhist monasteries and chaityas containing the image of Lord Buddha and the various events related to his life, like birth and enlightenment, Dharma Chakra Pravartana, and victory over Mara, etc., have been discovered in different parts of Sikhetra kingdom. Apart from Buddhism, Shaivism and Vaishnavism were also prevalent in this kingdom of Thatan. An image of Narayana reclining on the serpent Ananta and another seated 400 image of Vishnu in Thatna, a panel of images of Dasavatara in Pagan, and many other images were discovered from the excavations. The discovery of a Sivalingam, the emblems of Nandi and trident engraved on some of the coins of the 8th century suggest that the relation was The relation of Kalinga with Ceylon was also very old. Kalinga maintained her overseas trade relationship from very early times. The Buddhist texts like Mahavansha and Dipavansha focused on the trade relationship between Ceylon and Kalinga. These Buddhist texts reveal the establishment of the first kingdom in Ceylon by Vijaya, whose grandmother was the daughter of the king of Kalinga. A healthy and prosperous trade relation established between two countries through the sailors of Kalinga. According to the Huenson's account, it is noted that the elephants and the valuable pearls and gemstones were the chief export and commodities to Ceylon. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving towards the end of our paper presentation, and hence we have serial number 21, Alkananda Gahir. Please.
दीदी है क्या नहीं कर रहा नहीं कर रहा है क्या चल रहा है ना
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alkananda Gahir. I am a PhD research scholar, Department of History, Utkal University. My topic is the trading of ancient beads, maritime contact of Kalinga with Southeast Asia, with special reference to Kalahandi. The topic which prompted me or alluring me to take this topic is when I attended the conference of Science and Technology of Ancient Indian Glass in IIT Gandhinagar. Dr. Alok Kanungo sir, which gave me an insight to work on the beads, because he is also working on the beads in South and Southeast Asia. So, some other speakers have also told that the tiny beads also can give insight for the human strength and human capacity. So we have seen that beads are the most important artifact in Southeast Asia and in South Asia, and the most important that ancient beads found from India. And India is pioneered in the making of beads around 4,000 years ago. And we have seen that India is home of Dakin agate and Est Kalinians and other altered beads from the prehistoric time and in ancient Odisha. First, we have to know that where the reference from the bead or the glass comes from. First, we have seen that the mention of glass or kacha, it also called kacha or glass, we have seen in many Brahmanical, Sanskrit and Buddhist literature. In Yajur Veda, it mentioned that It was one of the articles of which female ornaments were made by stringing with the gold thread. And even in Satapatha Brahmana, it mentioned that Kaka refers to glass beads which were used for the decoration of horses for Aswamedha sacrifices. And there are very other references in Ashtadhyayi, in Panini's Ashtadhyayi, Kautilya's Arthasastra, and even in Mani Mekalai, it mentioned as Pali Gu, which means glass or quartz in Tamil. And we have seen that Ramayana also refers that the glass makers as Kachakara. So where the maritime trade beats started. So in the first millennium BC, we have seen that the South Asian sailors and traders were in contact with Eastern India. And even recent archaeological evidences also supported this view that the rapid spread of Kalinian beads and a variety of glass beads, along with many elements of pottery decoration and manufacture, along with the coast of northern and southern Vietnam, southern Taiwan, and most of the coast of northern and southern Vietnam, and most of Philippines, and much of eastern Indonesia, and a very distinctive jade ornament, all the sites noted above except Indonesia, strongly recommended that there was widespread communications, including trade, all around the south of South China by 1000 BC. Though it is not convincingly proved, but the only known and likely source for the Kalinian, and then later we have seen that the various early glass beads is the east coast of India around Madras. But we can say that there is clear evidence to suggest that the trade contact between Eastern India and Thailand date from 4th century BC or even earlier. Even among the, Siladrapati sir has also mentioned that the site Bon Then Thap Ped, which is in West Thailand, which mentioned that the semi-precious stones and glass beads and etched Kalinian beads and knobbed ware, which were clearly shows the contact with east coast of India. And even the Icich Glover, who was the excavator of Bon Thap Ped, which in Thailand, gives credit to the Buddhist missionaries who helps to for the transaction of trade between Odisha and Thailand. So, how the trading of ancient beads contact with Kalinga with Southeast Asia. So, in this respect, we discuss about the Kalahandi, how Kalahandi region came into the prominence. So we have seen that Kalahandi region shows the occurrence and distribution of various precious and semi-precious stones, and which we found place in the accounts of Panini's Ashtadhyayi, Kautilya's Arthasastra, and Ptolemy's geography. And the various types of beads like Kalinian, agate, glass, quartz, and jade from this region played a significant role in the network of trade. In ancient time, we know that Kalahandi was known as Mahakantara, or the Great Forest, and another name is Karunda Mandala, which means it is a depositors of various gemstones, Neelam, and Alexandrite. And we have seen that some people are also working in the site of Asurgarh and Jaugarh of Assam, and we have seen that there are various sites which give us evidence about the semi-precious stones that found from this site. And we have seen that the surface findings in Asurgarh, which includes the beads of semi-precious stones, and the first layer, which ascribed to 1st century AD, which shows that the beads of semi-precious stones, and the second layer, which is continued from 1st period to 4th century AD, which shows an interesting mold for the preparation of beads and ornaments. This is some semi-precious stone bead from Kalahandi region of Odisha, as it mentioned by Shilapati Tripati sir. And these are some beads which we can prove connection with Southeast Asia's region also. this is somehow some new findings we can say, or new discussions we can say that the one village called Jilingdara, which is in Kalahandi district, which is in Junagadh block of Kalahandi. It is said that it is the largest deposit of ruby as per the Geological Survey of India. So it can be a good information for us to research on that. And right now the government is not giving permission to go to the sites because it is a containment zone. Again, another site that it was the largest deposit of Neelam or sapphire or blue stone. So you can say that various findings and scientific analysis of different materials, through that we can connect our trade relations with Kalinga with Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Alkananda Gahir. Now we have the last paper presenter, that is serial number 22, Dr. Snigdha Rani Behra. Ma'am, please.
Good evening, one and all present over here. I am Dr. Snigdha Rani Behra from School of Women Studies, Utkal University. My topic is status of women in India, historical and contemporary linkage. In the 21st century, despite some men considering themselves modern, many still hold traditional views towards women. This gender-based attitude often leads to problems for women, as they are perceived as inferior and in need of male protection in a masculine society. Society tends to discriminate between men and women, expecting them to conform to specific behavioral norms. Women are often portrayed as weak, submissive, and emotional, while men are expected to be brave, strong, and ambitious. These societal attitudes create unequal treatment of men and women in various aspects of life, such as clothing, standards of living, and assigning roles. Gender, a social construct, plays a significant role in defining the differences between men and women, both biologically and culturally. The objective of the study is to study the social status of women, second, to study the secondary position of women as compared to men. The methods of this study is the presenter research essay is based on secondary tools. All the data required for this study has been obtained through various books, internet, and newspapers. The purpose of this study, the social status of women in India, so the study has been completed by collecting the relevant data. Analysis. Women in ancient period. The status of women in ancient India was influenced by a patriarchal system, yet they were respected and admired. Women had certain freedom, such as making gifts to religious institutions. They even played significant roles in history, contributing to the downfall of kingdom. In the Vedic society, women participated in religious ceremonies and tribal assemblies, not kept in the seclusion but dependent on male relatives throughout their lives.